Today, we're diving into the electrifying world of Emory Tate, the chess legend whose games were nothing short of a masterpiece. Known for his daring sacrifices and jaw-dropping tactics, Emory Tate didn't just play chess, he painted the board with brilliance. Let's see his game and learn something. Emory Tate playing against Henry L. Terry. Henry started the game with c4 and the game goes into English opening reverse Sicilian. You can get this position like directly with a c4, e5, but this is completely good. You just develop the knight and this pawn to d6 move and knight f3, Emory Tate throw the pawn g5 and the idea is simple. He wants to play the g4, b4, knocking in the center, also looking after this pawn. That's why he pushed the pawn to g4, attacking the knight. Knight moves to the uh, home square literally, and bishop to g7, looking after this pawn. So after pawn take, and bishop can take. In this position, e4 is played, and the idea is simple. You want to either develop this knight or the bishop. Emory sees the idea and throw the pawn to f5. Now you can take the pawn with the pawn, and idea is not to take back with the bishop. Instead, he play queen to e7. If you ignore bishop take knight is a double check and is mate. I think so, and that's why Henry is also a good player and develops the knight to protect this knight. By the way, it's not protecting because after bishop take knight, you can't take back with the knight because that's pinned to the king. That's why you have to take with the pawn and pawn take bishop. Bishop take f5 and now this position looks completely normal. Bishop gets developed to e3, the knight is unpinned but the queen is still on the e file. Knight to c6, developing another piece, and now knight to g3. The idea is simple. You just hit the bishop. Bishop move to d7. Not hanging the bishop, and bishop to e2. The idea is simple. You just want to take this pawn, but Emory also sees that and play h5, protecting this pawn on g4. Henry developed the queen to c2, long castle choose by Emory Tate, knight to f5 attacking the queen. Queen move to f7 by the way. So now this knight is attacked by bishop and the knight. By the way, you can play this bishop to, I think bishop b3 is also look good. But knight to d4 chosen by Henry. The idea is simple. If you take this knight, we are going to take with the pawn and now pawn gets undouble. That is exactly you never want to do with your opponent, and that's why Emory developed his knight. The idea is just take my knight. I'm going to plot another knight onto the same position. Henry Castle, and now Emory just jump with the knight, knight to f5, attacking the bishop and the knight. Knight take knight, bishop take knight, and now bishop sees the queen, and that's why Henry play bishop to d3 and bishop take bishop, queen take bishop. Emory play pawn to h4. That is a simple idea. You just want to push the pawn towards this king. And Henry play the rook to a b1. Rook a b1 is just looking the pawn that is near the king. Maybe there are some sacrifices in the future. H3, just knocking on the door. You want to trade or what? But in this position, Henry offer a queen trade. Emory is on the attacking side and said, I never want to trade. And he checked. Queen f5 check is played, but computer suggests a line that I want to show you, and that is bishop to g5, attacking this rook. That is chosen by the engine. And the idea is simple, like there are multiple ideas, but you just attacking the rook. And by the way, if rook play to d7, just protecting, you play rook take pawn. That is what I'm saying. And now after king take rook, you play this check, and if king go here, you just check, king to this, and you play the move rook to b1, checkmate. No, it's not mate, knight can block, rook take knight checkmate, and if king go here, just checkmate and Henry win the game. But that is not exactly not happen in the game. Instead, after queen f5 check, Emory offer a queen trade because then you hang this pawn that is on g4. That's why queen take queen and rook take queen, bishop d4. Now knight can take the bishop, but the simple idea is just you undouble your pawn That is exactly what happened. Rook to h5, rook to fe1, looking for this check. That is knight to e5, blocking that. Bishop take knight, rook take, and now king to f1. This is not good. Rook see each other, and Emory Tate's play rook to e7, double up the rook and make a battery. The idea is just trade everything. And in this position, Henry play rook takes rook, rook takes rook, rook to d1, rook d1. By the way, look at this pawn. They having a like staring contest and also just saying to each other, "Are you going to take me? Are you going to take me? Are you going to take me?" That is just they are talking about. But c5 chosen by Emory, and it's looking like you hanging the pawn. Yeah, you hanging the pawn. Henry see that and play rook to d5 and say, bro, you need to trade with me, and it's a draw. Emory play rook to e1 check. It's a brilliant move, by the way. Rook e1 check, sacrificing the rook, complete sacrifice. It's a complete sacrifice. The idea is simple. After king take rook, pawn take pawn, and hand you resign because there is nothing you can do. And I'm already going to make a queen. Even though you can take this pawn, queen, it's a check. And anywhere you move, I think queen is also always going to win against the rook. That's why Henry resigned the game. For the second game, we have Emory Tate versus Nick. Nick started the game with e4, c5 Sicilian defense, most favorite line opening of Emory Tate, knight to f3, d6, and we are in a Sicilian open variation, and also it is Cooper check variation. I didn't know that. I just read this from chess.com analysis and just kicking the bishop. Bishop move to h4, kicking the bishop, and bishop just go onto the g3. And now looking on this grid diagonal, and he play bishop to g7, attacking this knight. h3 kicking the knight, knight go back, and now bishop can take the knight, but bishop to e2 developing the piece, and also I think going to castle the king side, knight to c6 side. The idea is simple, you just want to trade the knight, knight go back to b3, h5, and now we just wants to play this, and that's what happened in the game. f3 just making the escape square for the dark square bishop, and h4 bishop just go on to the f2. By the way, you can plot something on here, and that is completely unkickable. By the way, knight is going to be hilarious because then it's attack this pawn. But that is what will happen in the future. Let's see. Knight to g6, just looking at this move, lining up against this square that is just get weaked in white position. Castle, bishop to e5, making this square more and more strong. Queen to d2, looking after this pawn, and queen to c8, lining up with this bishop. Bishop to e3, the idea is simple, you just want to take this, and in this position, emulated play bishop to f4, the idea is simple. If you take the bishop, we are going to take with the knight, but rook to e1, centralizing the rook, knight to e5, and knight to d4. We have this position. In this position, Emory C and say, look man, I'm going to take. And now in this position, Emory play bishop take, pawn take, bishop, and queen gets the entry in the position of Nick. And in the king side, look at this, king is looking weak, and the bishop is also looking for the checkmating threats. That's why bishop to b5 check, king move, and now bishop take bishop, knight take. Looking at this square are so weak, so weak. Rook to f1 and pawn attack the bishop, bishop move, and now queen g3 check. Queen can't block because just take, and it's made because protected by the knight. That's why king move to h1, pawn to h3, and in this position Nick play rook to g1, attacking the queen and hoping that queen is going to move. Absolutely not. Queen to g2 check. Queen g2 check is a horrible move. Like, you never expect that this move is going to be possible. And the idea is simple. Rook take, and now you take with the pawn, and queen can't take this pawn, by the way, if you want to sacrifice. That is not going to happen because it's a double check. Check with the pawn and the rook. You have to move the king. Once you move the king, rook h1 check, king move, and now you take this rook. And the idea is simple. You are going to promote the pawn and make a new queen. And that's why Nick play knight to d1, blocking this rook vision, and so now promoting is not a big threat. But king to g7, why king g7? Because you just want to introduce another rook to the h file. Then you are going to play rook h8, rook h1, then you promote and checkmate the opponent. That's why knight to e2 just wants to trade this knight. Knight rook c8, placing the rook on a great diagonal. b3, and the idea is just simple. We just want to blockade everything. That doesn't happen in the game, by the way. And instead, he play pawn to f6 to not get into this trap of pinning the knight to the king. But in this position, he play knight to g1. Knight g1 is what I am not understanding, just blocking the promotion. And also looking to just develop this knight also, by the way. So that not going to be a promoted pawn. So you are not hanging a promotion. Rook h8, the simple idea is just rook h1. That is just simple. And that is exactly what happened in the game. Bishop to c4. Now knight can take this bishop, but why you want to take this bishop? This bishop is not threatening anything. Rook h1, and he play bishop to e2, protecting this knight. By the way, you can take this bishop. Rook takes a2, the pawn is hanging, by the way, and knight to e3, just attacking this pawn. And in this position, rook a1, both rook attack this knight. That's why knight back to d1 and knight to g6. Knight g6 is just preparing knight to h4, protecting this protected pawn, by the way. And bishop to c4. This bishop is doing nothing. This bishop is just a waste of material. Have nothing to attack, literally, but just doing something. I don't know. Knight to h4, and now the both knight protect this pawn. In this position, he play bishop back to e2. What Nick going to move? He have no moves, right? In this position, he play Emory Tate play the move rook take knight, another brilliant move. And the idea is simple. If king take the rook, you play rook, knight h3 check, and Nick resigns because anywhere you move, it is just make a and queen and maybe just checkmate, right? Make a queen, and now you have a queen, and you can do multiple stuff with this. For the last game, we have Emory Tate versus Leonid Yudasin. Emory Tate started the game with e4, and Leonid Yudasin respond with c5 and a Sicilian defense that Emory loves a lot. Knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes, and it is called open variation, and the position transpose into a Najdorf variation. And this position, we get this position a lot of times, but in this, he developed just the bishop to c4, e6 blocking the diagonal, bishop to b3, moving the bishop 2 times. It just good. He know what he's doing. Knight to d7, developing the knight. Queen e2, just placing the queen directly in front of the king's file. And now a knight to c5, g4, and there's the idea simple. You just want to kick this knight from the natural square. b5 and g5, just attacking the knight. Knight moves, and now he play bishop to d5. It is kind of a move you can play. It is also a great move. The idea is simple. If by the way, it's brilliant by the injured, given brilliant. So the idea is simple. After pawn take, you just play knight to c6, attacking this queen. Queen has to move. Queen can't go here, can't here, can't here. By the way, here is completely normal, but like this, you just play this move, and it is looking like you're losing, but you just play here, and maybe this is also a move you can play. This is completely normal move, and that's why Leonardo Dasin respond with bishop to b7. That is completed not like by the engine. But bishop take bishop, knight take bishop, and a4 knocking on the queen side. Do you want to trade? B takes a4, rook takes, and now knight attack the rook. Rook protect itself, by the way, for surprisingly. Emory sees the threat attacking the rook, and that's why he moved the rook to a3. Queen to b6, looking after this pawn, but that is just protected by the bishop. That's why Emory is just castle. Emory castle the king, and now bishop to e7, looking after this pawn. And in this position, king to h1 is just moving the king from this g file, and the idea is simple. You just want to place the rook, the queen, and look at this rook lift. Even you can play this rook to h3 in future. You can play this castle. And in this position, Emory Tate play pawn to b4. The pawn is completely hanging, not protected by anything, but now the rook is going to be protected with the bishop. This knight is going to be hanging. That's why knight to a4, knight to f5. The idea is simple. After pawn takes, you play knight to d5, attacking the queen and the bishop as well. So queen go back to just protect the bishop, and now you take this pawn. And the idea is simple, by the way. For a long time, this knight is completely hanging, not protected by anything. Now in this position, he play Emory Tate play the move queen to h5. The idea is simple. You just placing the queen to checkmate the black king. And in this position, black play knight to b6. The idea is simple. You just want to trade this knight, and if you trade, it's good, complete good. But in this position, he play rook to h3. Take my knight. Take my knight. I'm going to mate you. It's completely made. But in this position, Leonard see that and play knight to f8, and now this knight is just not hanging, by the way, but protected by the queen. But queen is also protecting this bishop, and also rook is protecting this bishop. There are multiple chaos. And in this position, I wanted to play hanging the knight and play pawn to f6, attacking the bishop and the pawn. Knight take knight, and now pawn takes pawn, and now king takes the pawn. Why king take the pawn? Because bishop gets the entry. Bishop to b2 check. The king has to move, and king move. And for surprisingly, this position g6. Why g6? If you take like this, it's mate. If you take like this, there is multiple things you can do. Leonard Udasi respond with not taking anything and play bishop to f6. The idea is very simple, guys. The idea is a very simple. The idea is simple that you just want to trade this bishop. This bishop is very good on this diagonal. It's a long diagonal and also near the king. You just want to trade. But Emory Tate play pawn takes f7 check, and also it's a fork, complete fork. That's king move to h8. Now you can do what? Is just take this rook, but he play rook to g1. The idea is just complete hanging. By the way, completely hanging bishop. You can take that. But no, rook to e1. Just giving up the rook because you are just losing that anyway. Rook to e1. Rook takes rook, and now bishop take bishop. Rook to e8, attacking the queen. If you can protect, protect. But knight to f6 is just a simple fork of a queen and a rook. You are not giving any shit about that, and you play rook take queen, because if knight take the queen, you can take this, or you, even though you have multiple things to do, you gobble everything on the position. That's why he played rook take rook, and now queen move out of the danger. The idea is simple, is knight to e4 and queen go back is just a simple fork attacking the knight and the rook on the same time. That's why knight go back to f6, just protecting both of them, and rook to g3. Knights get developed, just protecting this knight, and knight queen to g5. It is just checkmate, and Leonard Udasin resigned the game, and why it's just checkmate. If you didn't do anything, it is queen to g7 checkmate. But if you try to protect by moving the knight, you are not going to lose anything, but you lose the game on the spot, because after queen to g8, rook take, and now it's make the queen and win the game. By the way, rook take Rook is also just checkmate. So that's why you need to design the game. If you like the video, just click on the like button. I'm going to meet you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.